Dr. Martin Luther King, and to celebrate our commitment individually and as an institution to keep his dream alive. Many organizations on this campus have worked hard, many individuals have, to work very hard to plan this evening and for other upcoming activities. I want to just recognize those that have worked together and pulled together to make this event possible and others in the coming days. The Office of Multicultural Student Development, the Division of Academic Affairs, the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Compliance, the Cradis D. Williams Graduate School, the Center for Appalachian Studies, the Children's Playhouse of Boone, Appalachian Seniors Program, the Women's Studies Program, Interdisciplinary Studies Program, Scholars Bookshop at the University Bookstore, and the ASU Sociology Club. All of those have worked hard to make this a great evening for us to enjoy, and for us to gather and to celebrate. Yes, we do want to celebrate the progress that has been made in our world and the progress that has been made on our campus. I want to thank all of you, many of you, the 170 individuals of students, faculty, and staff that on MLK Day here on campus that pulled together and worked with 16 agencies and many individuals and made such a difference in this community. You raised over $1,300 to help the people who are in danger of losing the heat this winter. In short, the work that you did, you cut down trees, you cleared driveways, you delivered wood, brush was hauled, money was raised, a party was thrown, buildings were insulated, and buckets and bags were filled, and walls were painted. The work went on and on. You made that difference in this community, and that is something that we should celebrate, and I thank each of you for your work in doing that. But not only do we celebrate what we have done in our nation and on our campus, but this is the time that we renew individually and collectively here our commitment to Dr. King's dream and to work to enhance diversity on our campus and equality for all, as Dr. King said, for all God's children. Dr. King often spoke of the mountaintop, and from there he said, you can see the promised land. Well, we are on a beautiful mountaintop in northwestern North Carolina, and I believe that we can see that promised land that he talked about. We're not there yet, but we can see it. This occasion on our campus gives us that opportunity to pause and to celebrate, yes, accomplishments, but to commit that we are going to get to that promised land. Let us pledge to unite our hearts and our efforts so that we can shout from our hearts out and say, we will not, Dr. King, we will not ever let you down. I thank you for coming, and now I am really honored to recognize a gentleman who has never let this community down and never let this university down. An individual who is very much involved in Appalachian State University, very much involved in this community. He, like Dr. King, has touched many lives, and he will touch many more. He is a great friend, a great leader. Please join me here as I recognize Pastor Reggie Hunt. Pastor Hunt.
Good evening to you. Thank you all for being here with us tonight on an awesome night as we honor the dream and the legacy of Dr. King, and also hear an incredible speaker tonight. We thank you for your time and welcome your participation throughout the night as well. Let us pray. Father, we are so thankful for the people who have gathered here today. We understand that even as we look across this audience and we see the diversity that we possess in this building, that this would not be possible without the heroes of the faith that have traveled before us and fought before us to make this dream possible. The things that we take for granted, just being able to gather here together, is a blessing. Father, we celebrate the legacy of Dr. King, the dream and the vision in which he had, and all of those who fought alongside him, and all of those who continue to fight for equality and justice. We're reminded of the scripture that Habakkuk said, write the vision and make it plain that those who read it may run. We have had people in the previous generation that have written the vision for us. Now it is up to us in this current generation to run with it. Father, let the time that we have today be a blessing to all of those who fight for progress and justice and equality. Bless this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Anthem. If we could all stand at this time for the singing of the National Black Anthem, accompanied by Professor Jason Thompson.
Yeah. everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanae Howard, and I will be giving the tribute to Mrs. Coretta Scott King, the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because we all know behind every great man is an educated, beautiful, strong woman. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members, a heart of grace, and a soul generated by love. A quote by Coretta Scott King. Mrs. Coretta Scott King was born and raised in Heinberger, Alabama in 1927. At an early age, she was exposed to injustices in life in a segregated community. Despite those challenges, young Coretta Scott King excelled in her studies and was named valedictorian of her graduating class in Lincoln High School in 1945. Upon graduating from high school, she received a scholarship to Antioch College, where she received her Bachelor of Arts in Music and Education. As an undergraduate, she quickly took active interest in the Haitian Civil Rights Movement, the Antioch chapter of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, better known as NAACP, and the college's Race Relations and Civil Liberties community. She also became a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. After completing her undergraduate degree, Mrs. King won a scholarship to study concert music in Boston, Massachusetts, where she met the young theology student, Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. After completing her education in Boston, Mrs. King married Dr. King in 1954 and moved to Montgomery, Alabama. The couple soon found themselves caught in a dramatic event that triggered the modern civil rights movement: Rosa Parks' refusal to yield her seat to a white passenger. Throughout the movement, Mrs. King toiled beside her husband, spreading the message of nonviolence. She even used her musical ability to perform a series of critically acclaimed freedom concerts. These concerts were combined with poetry, narrative, and music to tell the stories of the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King's fame spread beyond the United States, and he soon was seen as a leader of the American civil rights movement. Because of this, Mrs. King found herself increasingly demand as a public speaker. She became the first woman to deliver a Class Day address at Howard University, to preach a statutory service at St. Paul's Cathedral in London, and served as the Women's Strike for Peace delegate. After Dr. King's assassination in 1968, Mrs. King concentrated on fulfilling her husband's work by building the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolence and Social Change. To this accomplishment, she expressed, "I am more determined than ever that my husband's dream will become a reality." Mrs. King led a successful campaign to establish Dr. King's birthday as a national holiday on January 15th. In her remaining years, Mrs. King remained active in the causes of racial economic justice and devoted most of her energy in AIDS, education, and curbing gun violence. Mrs. King died in 2006 at the age of 78 from complications with ovarian cancer. Even though Mrs. King's earthly duties are over, she will continue to be a global inspiration. On behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, we would like to remember and honor Mrs. Coretta Scott King for her multiple achievements that she contributed to the advancement of minorities worldwide. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, my brothers and my sisters, today I have the esteemed pleasure of introducing to you our keynote speaker for this evening, Ms. NikkiGiovanni. Now, before I move into the part of my speech where I list Ms. Giovanni's many accomplishments and accolades, I must first say that when asked to present her at this 2010 MLK commemoration, I was very excited, honored, and somewhat scared. I have for a good part of my life now known of Nikki Giovanni. My grandmother, a wordsmith herself, has a multitude of books in her house focused on black literature, the civil rights movement, and black people in general. This trend followed into my own house because as I grew up, my mother collected similar books and magazines, all recognizing black achievements throughout history. So I personally have always loved black excellence in all of its forms. As soon as I was old enough to fully understand it, research it, and comprehend blacks' involvement in the creation of this great nation, Miss Nikki Giovanni's name was one of the names I ran across multiple times. The first time I read a Nikki Giovanni poem, was in an African American literature class at my old high school, Harding University High in Charlotte, North Carolina. One of the first days of class, we read Ego Tripping, There May Be a Reason Why. As soon as we began reading, I realized that I had heard this poem multiple times on one of my favorite shows, A Different World. The episode with this poem showed how black people were depicted throughout history and how many minorities have been pushed down and back into society. Making a long story short, at the end of the episode, a show was put on depicting the many trials of blacks, and at the end, Ego Tripping, There May Be a Reason Why, by Nikki Giovanni was recited as those struggles turned into triumphs. So as you can see, I've personally been a fan for a while now. Poet and prolific writer Nikki Giovanni was born in Knoxville, Tennessee on June 7, 1943. A graduate with honors in history from her grandfather's alma mater, Fisk University, Nikki Giovanni is bad, in a good way. Attending the University of Pennsylvania and Columbia University, Ms. Giovanni is one of America's treasures. Being an internationally recognized and award-winning poet, this mother, daughter, activist, writer, and strong black woman is also a distinguished professor of English at Virginia Tech University. Named one of Oprah's 25 living legends, and you know when Oprah says it, it has to be true. Nikki Giovanni was crowned early in her career as the Princess of Black Poetry. She has received the Langston Hughes Medal for Poetry, the first Rosa L. Parks Woman of Courage Award, and is an honorary member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm telling y'all, she's bad. She has received the keys to more than 24 cities, and from 1972 until now, she has obtained over 25 honorary degrees. I'm telling y'all, she's bad. But not only is she bad, she is also blessed. Overcoming cancer, Ms. Nikki Giovanni has never given up on her passion for equality, education, and the active power of words. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I give you Ms. Nikki Giovanni.
I'm actually coming from Anchorage, Alaska, so you kind of lose time. Anchorage is very pretty. Now it's a lot better that Sarah's not there. But, you know, that's crazy to be shooting wolves from a helicopter. That's just mean. I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? You get a helicopter. Where would we be without the wolf? But he said today is Thursday, you know, and I was like, oh my God, then we have to get people, isn't this Grey's Anatomy? So I know you have things to do, but then he reminded me, isn't that what you do, TiVo? And that other thing, DNR or something, DNA, whatever. I'm not good at that stuff. No, I'm so glad to be here. I've been at Virginia Tech for 23 years, and I'm very proud of Hoagie, and we're a good school. But the first thing when I went to Virginia Tech, the second or third year that I was there, I wanted to have a program to show my students what students should be doing. Tech, as you know, our kids just work all the time, and it's not good, actually. We need to put a little more air in there for them. But I just wanted to show the writing students something we should do, and I was trying to think of a way to show it. And I thought, well, of course you need music. I mean, what else are you going to do? You need music. And quite naturally, because you're our neighbor, the first thing I did at Virginia Tech as a professor was to invite the ASU choir. You came up and gave us a program. So we're very proud of that, and I'm very proud of that association, because we are neighbors and we should be friends. I do want to thank my sorors of Rho Theta for greeting me, for greeting me this evening, because it's very, very nice. When I was invited this time, someone said, I really don't right now know who, do you have anything about mountains? Well, I'm a Tennessean by birth. I grew up, I'm Knoxvillian by birth. I'm living in Blacksburg, Virginia, so these hills are our hills. And I thought, well, yeah, I had written a poem, which actually is not in the book now, but I thought, of all of the places, this is the first time I read it, and I hope I'm not going to stumble on it, but the history of these mountains is important, and I know that you know that, so that was a dumb statement. One of the things that we don't recognize, for example, when we look at West Virginia, which would have been Kanawha, if they had named it as they had wished, is that this migration through these mountains is what's going to make America. When you look at Virginia, you're looking at Botetourt County, which actually ran from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ohio River. And breaking that up, if we recall John Brown, as we look at the Civil War, John Brown went to Harper's Ferry, which was in Virginia. It's now, of course, in West Virginia. And of course, West Virginia has every reason to be proud of itself, because West Virginia said, we are not going to send our sons to die so that the Shenandoahs can have slaves. It's a great history that we have in these mountains, and we need to keep our mind on it. We here in North Carolina have a great history also. We need to keep our minds on who we were so that we can begin to see who we can become, because I swear there's a lot of craziness out there. When you have a Rush Limbaugh or that other fool, Pat Robinson, standing around. That's just evil. I mean, you got dead people in Haiti. You got some 100,000 people dead. You don't have to be nice about it, but you don't have to laugh at it. And I think that's despicable. Then I'm a Christian. I grew up in a Baptist church, so I'm just not going to let them get away with saying they're a Christian, because there's nothing that they're saying that Jesus would have said. It's not necessary. That's evil, and they need to get real jobs. But you know why I'm mad at Ronald Reagan? No, and I am. I was never a fan of Ronald Reagan, but the reason I'm mad at him is that he was the president that overturned the Fairness Doctrine. And once you didn't have to present the other side, it could get as crazy as it is. It's important, if you're going to do political work, that both sides, or all sides actually, be heard. I'm not afraid. I'm obviously a little bit probably more liberal than many people. That probably understated. And I don't mind other people disagreeing. It's not about agreeing, it's about fairness. And we're all supposed to be human beings, and somehow we have to get back to a conversation, because we don't have a conversation right now. We have everybody shouting at everybody, nobody's happy, and nobody has jobs. So I'm a little mad at Barack, because Barack Obama was elected for a couple of things, not many, a couple of things. I voted because he's cute, but other people, well, he is. At least you have something good to look at while you're being mad. But he was elected to stop a war. He was elected to put people back to work, and he was elected to pass health care. And we gave him a supermajority. We gave him 60 senators and a majority in the House. So why haven't we done it? Why haven't we given the money to banks who have not loaned the money? People are still losing their homes. There's no jobs out there. There's no work out there. Nobody's working. And if it wouldn't be for a storm every now and then, a lot of people right now in your area and in my area wouldn't have any money at all. But thank God snow comes and they have to clear it up. And so it's like, okay, let them clear the snow and pay them over time. This is crazy. We need roads, we need bridges, we need something that nobody wants to deal with, community colleges. Community colleges are so crucial, because eventually, no matter how many times Barack and all the rest of them keep sending our sons and daughters over to Afghanistan and Iraq and Yemen to kill people, they're going to come home. And when they come home, they're going to need help. And the help that they need is not psychological nor pharmaceutical. What they need is a narrative. They need a story that they can read, that they can begin to see themselves. And yes, they've done ugly things, and ugly things were done to them. We need a story. so that they can begin to see this is how you conduct yourself after these things have happened to you and after you've done these things. We need a narrative. We need English teachers. And we're going to have to pay youngsters like you to learn to teach English. We're going to have to build up that part of the community. We need dentists, because you can't get a good job without good teeth. Everybody knows that. That's the truth. When have you ever been to a bank or a stockbroker and seen a tooth missing? Not going to happen. We need dentists. Plus, dentists are, of course, the front line in cancer. Almost 80% of all cancers are found by dentists. We need dentists. And then we can get back to needing doctors. And I'm a big fan of doctors because I've been sick and doctors help. But you need dentists. And we can do that. We can bring these youngsters home, send them to community college, let them finish up at four-year college, let them go to dental school, let them make a little money, let them do a good job. We have to rethink. Somebody would say, Nikki, you're being a socialist. I'm not the socialist. They didn't bail my butt out. Yeah, I deserve a hand on that one. No, that's amazing. They are bailing people out and they're saying, we're capitalists. No, baby, if you were capitalist, your butt would be under. You would have paid the price. That's what capitalism does. If you can't take care of yourself, to hell with you. Unless it's you, isn't it? And then it's like, well, AIG is too big to fail and I'm too little. No, you get tired of that. But that's not why we're here tonight. I just thought I'd mention it. When God made mountains, he made runaway slaves with no book knowledge of the North Star, nor botany classes describing moss on the north side of trees. He made black men and women unafraid of mountain lions or Florida panthers, and no matter what Teddy Roosevelt tried to show, bears do not like people. Not the cuddly little koala, not the fierce grizzly, not the mighty polar, nor the humble mountain black bear. All bears and their dens are to be avoided. He did make the jackrabbit, who could be snared. He did make the possum, who was so slow. He made the clever raccoon and rivers sweet with fish. He made berries and nuts and green leafy things which were safe and good to eat. When God made runaway slaves, he knew they would need a friend, not only in nature, but of a human kind. So he sent mountaineers. He sent white people who would not be a slave nor own one, who would not kill a slaveholder nor die for one. He sent a free white man who believed in change and a free white woman who believed in him. And they made their homes in these mighty mountains. They liked to have a drink or two, so they welcomed Johnny Appleseed, who brought stories and fermented applejack. They liked heroes, so they welcomed the traveling preacher with the message of a man who has trampled out the vineyards where the grapes of wrath are stored. They liked to sing, so they welcomed the runaway slave with his banjo, and friendships were formed. When God made mountains, he made men and women who would need each other, who would respect each other, who would carry the word so that all men and women could be saved. When God made mountains, he said, "Come unto me, ye who need rest." And they called it Appalachia, the original word for peace. And some folks said, this cannot be done. And the rest said, yes, we can. And the clouds settled in that welcome place between the ground and trees and sky, like smoke coming off a coffee pot, like steam coming off a kettle of pinto beans, like the rustic smell of wood burning, of a wood-burning fire at day's end, at home, and at peace. Like God has a rocking chair in the sky, smoking his pipe and being proud of the great Smoky Mountains. I'm a Tennessean by birth. I was born there. During the age of segregation, when you couldn't go to the same amusement park or the same movie theater, when the white guys would cruise up and down the streets and call out to you, when the black guys were afraid of being lynched. But we all went to church each Sunday and sang a precious song and found a way not to survive, anything can survive, but to thrive and believe and hope. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born there, but I was only 2 months old when my mother and father moved my sister and me to Cincinnati during the age of segregation. when the Dow drugstores wouldn't serve us, when neighborhoods were redlined, but at least Mommy could get a job teaching and Daddy could get a job behind a desk. And after all, if you were a college graduate, that's the least you can expect. Though the Pullman porters took us south each summer and watched over us with an unfailing faith and got us from there to here. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I was born there, in the only state in rebellion that didn't have to undergo Reconstruction, in the volunteer state that sent as many from one side as another, in an area where if I just had to have my car break down, I would prefer any holler to any city neighborhood, but there was no work and no way. And the chronic angers that flared would chase us to Ohio. We were not Liza crossing the river, just 4 people, 2 in love and 2 who were loved, who needed to put the rest to the rage. But the rage stayed and someone had to go. I chose me, but I was born there, so the going was a coming. I'm a native Tennessean. I take no joy in Davy Crockett nor Jim Bowie. They were wrong to be at the Alamo. They were wrong to fight for the theft. I love James Agee. I loved Thunder Road, though I, a native Tennessean, was not allowed to play a big part when the crew came to town to film the movie. Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn came to take a walk in the spring rain. And despite it all, I like Andrew Jackson. At least he knew the big guys were wrong. I'm a native Tennessean. I graduated from Fisk University in Nashville. I know that the freedmen paid for that school. Nobody gave them anything. Pennies and nickels and prayer and determination. The freedmen paid for it, and many others. I know the American Missionary Society took the money the Jubilee singers made to save Fisk and used it for other purposes. I know the American Missionary Society was wrong. I was educated by the singers of those songs. How could I not love those songs? How could I not love Nashville? How could I not love Dinah Shore, who invited the Jubilee singers to sing at the Grand Ole Opry, then had to hear those rumors? She sang on, sang until she saw the USA in her Chevrolet. Mwah. I once saw her on a plane. I was going to the cabin. She was in first class. I said, hey. She smiled and said, hey, back. When I got Georgia on my mind, I rode the Chattanooga choo-choo to Lookout Mountain. I saw Memphis and was enchanted. From the mighty Mississippi gracefully turning all red to Bill Street beats at midnight. All those blues from so many bloods. Decided to turn my blues to Memphis Gold. W.C. Handy, Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, the late, great Johnny Ace, stacks and stacks of music, American music. The Athens of the South held Tennessee music, but Memphis put the tears to the lonely and crossed over. Everybody wants to rock to my rhythm. I am Memphis. I heard the shots that took Martin. I know who killed the king. I'm a native Tennessean. I know what it is to be free. I am singing the country blues. I am whittling a wooden doll. I am underground mining coal. I am running moonshine. I'm a white boy with a banjo, native to West Africa. I'm a black boy with a twang, native to the hills. I am smart. I am cool. I am unafraid. I am free. Yeah, I'm a native Tennessean. It was very nice to hear the tribute to Coretta. You know, Martin, we're here because of Martin Luther King Jr., and I'm glad that his birthday is being celebrated. And, you know, it's time. But, you know, it's really sort of fair to say, too, well, I don't say, I mean, it's a cliche, but behind every great man, there's a great woman. But in Martin's case, there are 3, actually. He got super lucky. His mother was a fabulous woman. Mama King just did everything. I mean, she was really good. Daddy King was great, too. But he knew Mama King was important, you know. And, of course, she married Coretta, and Coretta was important. But the woman we forget about when we talk about Martin is, of course, Rosa Parks. Because without Rosa, where would he be? It had to be Rosa. Because when if you come to December 1st, 1955, you have Rosa Parks on the bus. 9 months previous to that, we had a young woman, her name is Claudette Colvin. She was a 16-year-old. She, too, had refused to give up her seat. It wasn't what was being done, it was actually who was doing it. People pick on Miss Parks because, well, people are mean and crazy, you know that. But people are like, you know, Rosa planned that. How are you going to plan a fool like James Tate? If you could have planned it, you would have planned it way earlier than she did. And I teach, right now I teach an evening class in tech because in tech I do 3 in 1, we do 2 and 2. And so my class this semester is writing for children's literature. So last week what I did is we write every week, we write stories every week. I want my kids to learn history because Americans are so ahistorical. Everything in America happened yesterday, and you get kind of tired of that. And so I just wrote on the board, Thurgood Marshall, Emmett Till, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King Jr. So what they have to do is figure out how they're going to transfer, how they're going to move through those 4 people. And of course we have Thurgood Marshall, because NAACP was suing so that we could have schools. The schools separate but equal was such a huge joke. I don't even know how people could say things like that. Obviously, separate is inherently unequal. Errol Warner and the Supreme Court ruled in a 9-0 decision. And I've always been glad it was 9-0 because if it had been 8-1 or 7-2, it would have overthrown by now, and we'd be back in the throes of segregation. Everybody would say, oh, you know, isn't that nice? And it wouldn't be. It would be ugly and crazy. And so we had Thurgood to finally get that decision. He was the lead lawyer. This is going to be in 54. Now, in 1955, in August, we're going to have a young man. His name is Emmett Till. And we're going to have Emmett going down to Money, Mississippi to visit his grand-uncle, Mose Wright. And Emmett had never been on a train before. He was excited about it. He's a little chubby kid. He just turned 14 in July. And he's a Northerner. But none of that really sort of matters anyway, because what's going to happen to Emmett just shouldn't have happened to anybody. I don't care what he did or didn't know. Emmett's going to get down to Money, and he's an only child. And his mother has taken good care of him. He's spoiled, and I don't have a problem with that. He wears gabardine slacks. He wears leather shoes. You almost always saw him in a white shirt. He's going to flip his sleeves, and he's going to be a bit of a dandy. And his mother had given him money. Now, we don't know what money means. In 1955, money was $5. $10 would have been extraordinary, but we knew he had some. Emmett is staying with his cousins, and his cousins are waking up at 5:30 in the morning, and they are getting out by 6 o'clock. They have their breakfast, they get up by 6 o'clock, and they go pick cotton. And they pick cotton from about 6 in the morning when the sun comes up till about 1 in the afternoon, when it's too hot to do anything, for which they are paid a quarter. You can see the problems. So Emmett gets up when he feels like it. Moses Wright, Mrs. Wright fixes him. He's a visitor. And so you can see the problems that are happening. And his cousins are saying, okay, well, yeah, you might be from Chicago, and you might know a lot about the city, but we know about white people. And we're going to teach you how to take care of yourself with our white people. Emmett's having none of it, because he's a kid, and he's like, no, he had a stutter. I know white people. I have a white girlfriend. And what he does, he pulls out of his pocket, those little stupid, when people used to buy wallets, and those little dumb pictures, I always had this little stupid looking blonde in there, that 1950s hair, and, the governor of Virginia has 1950s hair. And it's so awful. I mean, shouldn't he braid it or dye it or, throw a cranberry streak through it, do something? You just can't have 1950s hair. But that'd be another discussion. At least your governor doesn't. I mean, everybody, come on, it's 2000. It's 2010. Do something different, Bob. But nonetheless, when you see him, you'll see what I mean. Emmett pulls out this wallet and he says to his cousins, I have a white girlfriend. Well, anybody could look at that and tell it was not even a picture. And so it was making his cousins crazy. And they said, well, if you know so much about white girls, there's a white girl in the store over there. Go over there and say something to her. Now, that woman is going to be, she's 19, but her name is going to be Carolyn Bryant. And she is married to Roy Bryant, and they run Bryant's grocery store. Now, you know a couple of things about Carolyn Bryant really very quickly. You know that they are poor whites. And you know that because they're trading in the black community. If they'd had any money, they would have been trading someplace else. We know that Roy Bryant and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, were away in Louisiana pulling shrimp. So there was nobody there but Carolyn and, of course, Mrs. Milam, J.W.'s wife, right? And Emmett goes over to the store, and he's going to do it. What we all did in segregation. I grew up in segregation. When you go into a store, no matter where it was, what you did was you wait. Because the first people that are going to be waited on are going to be white men, white women, black men, black women, and then the children. So Emmett waited. When everybody else was waited on, Carolyn, I'm going to give her credit for manners. Carolyn Bryant said to him, what would you like? What do you want? Something of that nature. Now, he's going to do what he has to do, which is, for those of you who are my age, you know, the first thing you have to do is you walk over to the counter and you put your money down. If you don't show the money, there's no more conversation. So let's say Emmett put a quarter on the counter. And she said, what would you like? And he's 10 cents, but he started 10 cents worth of bubble gum, please, because he was a polite kid. 10 cents worth of bubble gum will give you 20 pieces of bubble gum, which is plenty because it's 2 for a penny. Plenty to share with the cousins. Carolyn went over and counted out his bubble gum, came back, put that on the counter, and his change. If at any point Emmett had reached, she would have reached under the counter and I have no doubt in my mind about that, and pulled out the gun that she kept there, and she would have shot him. Because that's what she was trained to do, that's what she was going to do, because she would have considered it an assault, and that couldn't have happened. It didn't happen. Emmett collected his purchases, and he collected his change, and we know he walked to the door. Now, what we don't know is what exactly was said. Some people said it was a wolf whistle. Some people said he said something, bye, baby, or see you, baby, something silly. And he giggled, and his cousins giggled, and they ran away. And nobody told Mose right. And now we're going to have a bit of a problem, because when Roy Bryant comes back, one of the cousins, God bless him, I'm sure he had no idea what he was doing. One of the cousins said to Roy Bryant, what you going to do about that boy talking smart to your wife? So now we have an elephant in the room, somebody's going to have to shoot him. Now they said that J.W. Milam got liquored up and decided to go out and get the boy. I got to tell you, I think that gives liquor a bad name. A lot of people have been liquored up. They don't go out and kill 14-year-old boys. J.W. Milam was a mean, evil son of a bitch, really. And he had decided that wouldn't it be fun to go kill somebody, so he goes out. Roy Bryant goes to the door and knocks on the door. Now, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure I could tell anybody in this room, 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody knocking on your door, not a good idea. And Mose knew that, so Mose comes to the door and he says, who's there? And the man at the door is holding a flashlight. And he shines it on his face. He said, it's me, Mr. Bryant. He said, what do you want? He said, I want the boy from Chicago. And Mose said, what for? And he said, the one doing all that talking. Now Moses, of course, is going to try to buy time, because you know if that boy leaves that house at 2 o'clock in the morning, he is not going to come back. You don't have to be intelligent to understand that. But finally, J.W. speaks up and he says, either bring the boy out, and I'm sure he did not say boy, or I'm going to kill everybody in the house. And nobody doubted that J.W. Milam, in fact, would kill everybody in the house. And J.W. was crazy, so Moses is now going to have to give up his only great-grandnephew, of his only niece to these people. Now we know that they took him out to the pickup truck, and we know that Roy Bryant said to somebody in the truck, is this the boy? And somebody in the truck said yes. We still don't know who. The reason that the Emmett Till case remains open is that murder has no statute of limitations. And until we get all of the principals involved, the case remains open. The FBI keeps trying to close it, but you can't close it until you know, or until they try to, a little bit better to find out who this was. We know they took Emmett to J.W.'s barn, and we know that they beat him for the rest of the night. They beat him all night. We know when the light came up, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, when they looked at what they did, they recognized this should not be seen. Nobody should see this. They recognized even then the horror of it. They got old crazy Negro to go, his name is too tight. They told him to go get a gin fan, which he did, and some barbed wire. And they wrapped the barbed wire around what they said was left of Emmett's neck, connected it to the gin fan, and took it to the Tallahatchie and dropped it in. They were, of course, hoping that the fish and the crabs would eat it up. But you know, 3 days later, the body came back up. Little white boy was fishing, saw the body, called the sheriff. By then, Mamie Till Bradley was in Mississippi, and so when the call came through, she too, the family went to see what it was. And of course it was Emmett. She said, that's Emmett. And the sheriff, being a fool, among other things, said, well, we're not even sure. You know, we don't know what that is. We don't even know if it's black or white. But of course the sheriff was a bigot. So if he had thought that was a white man, he would have sent it to a white mortuary. He knew it was a black man. He sent it over to Century Funeral Home, which is right there in Greenville. And they put it in the casket. It's what was called an abused body. So in terms of looking at it, in terms of what you can do with it, there's not much to do with it. It had been in the water and it had been badly beaten. So what they did was close it. But Mamie wanted the body home. And the sheriff was trying to get an order from the judge to bury it in Mississippi so that he could continue saying, as he'd been saying, oh, that boy's up in Detroit with his grandmother having a good time. There's a great group of men who have been underappreciated all of their lives, I think, the Pullman Porters. And the Pullman Porters said to Mamie Till Bradley, how can we help? What can we do? Because the world now became aware of this 14-year-old who was missing and aware of what was going on there in Mississippi. And she said, I want Emmett's body home. I want him home to Chicago. Now, if you ever go down, and you should, you'll see that Century Funeral Home is about 1,000 yards from the railroad tracks. So when the railroad tracks got to Greenville, they stopped the train. The Pullman Porters got off, went over, and carried the casket and put it on the train. Now, they didn't put it in baggage, which would be the normal thing, but they put it in baggage, they would have smelled it. it would have become known that this body is on the train, and most likely everybody black on that train would have been killed because the South had decided to hide this crime. So they put it in their personal effects, and they wrote it with him through Atlanta and all the way up to Chicago. When they got to Chicago, his mother said, "I want the casket open." And the funeral director that met her in Chicago said, "I promised the sheriff that I wouldn't open the casket," as if that would be significant what the sheriff thinks. And Mamie said, I didn't promise anybody, this is my boy. I want the casket open because I want the world to see what they did to my son. And she was right. She opened that casket, and what you saw was that bloated face. Some of you remember. And you saw one eye was missing, and one was just hanging there. It looked like somebody had taken the backside of a hatchet and just tried to knock his face in half. He was castrated. There was a hole in his head, and the assumption had been, oh, that this hole was, they finally shot him. But when they examined it, it turned, it was a drill. It was a terrible thing that happened in that barn that night. And it was important that somebody hold that mirror up. So if you're ever on Jeopardy or something, and they say, what was the biggest civil rights demonstration before the March on Washington? It was viewing the body of Emmett Till. Over 100,000 people came and viewed it. And what we had is a trial, of course. They arrested Bryant and Milam, put them on trial for the murder of Emmett Till, and that was a circus. They sat there and drank Coke and smoked cigarettes, and an all-white jury, of course, found them not guilty. This was September. There was a man named William Bradford Huey, who was from Alabama. He's an Alabama by birth, and he worked for Look magazine. Everybody knew they did it, so he asked Look, can I have some money to buy the story? Look gave him $4,000, which probably in today's money would be maybe 20, but not a lot. But double jeopardy is going to apply, so they sold the story. And they said, we killed him. It was an approved killing. We can't have these people coming down here talking to our women, which is a terrible, crazy thing to do. So at the end of September, we have their confession. Now we're going to have 31 days in October, 30 days in November, and we are at the 1st of December, where we're going to have Rosa Parks sitting on a bus on her way home. When the driver, she's in the neutral section, she was in compliance with the segregationist laws of Alabama. She had gotten on that bus, deposited her dime, got off, walked around, got to the back, and entered from the back. People say, oh, Rosa Parks was trying to start trouble. She was always within the rules on this one. She sat down in the neutral section because the black section was full and the white section wasn't. As the bus filled up, the bus driver wanted those seats, but they had a right to be there because the neutral section is exactly that. And so whoever got there first, that's the color it's going to be. There was a man sitting next to Rosa. It's Thursday, December 1st, 1955. There's a man sitting next to her, and there were two men on the other side of the aisle. So when James Tate said, give me those seats, Rosa said, no, why do you pick on us? But the man on the aisle, and I don't blame him. I cannot find it in my heart. I don't blame him at all. It's Thursday, and in those days you got what was called a pay envelope. If on Friday he's not there to get that pay envelope, he's worked a week for nothing because they won't give it to him, and he's not able to sue or something like that. This man, I'm sure, has a wife, has children, has a mother, maybe a mistress, I don't know, but he needs his money, and I don't want to judge, but he needs his money. So he says to Miss Parks, I'm going to give him the seat. And she said, yes, okay. And she stood up. And when she stood up, James Tate thought he had won, that she was going to do as he had demanded. And he turned around to go drive the bus. But when he looked in the mirror, she was sitting. And he said, I'm going to have you arrested. And she said, with that quiet strength, you may do that. And as she sat there, I'm sure she counted off the days just like I did. It had only been 61 days since the resolution of the Emmett Till. It was time for the grown-ups to make a statement. Of course, the cops got on the bus and they arrested her. To the credit of the policemen, they didn't manhandle her, they didn't try to do anything, they just, kind of patted her on the elbow. One picked up her purse and she was arrested. The news spread like wildfire. And it always amazes me because nobody ever says, how come everybody knew that Rosa Parks was arrested? But she and Raymond and her mother lived in the projects. And projects, of course, the news just goes. And she was a regular bus driver, so everybody knew that she had to be on the bus. So people said Mrs. Parks was arrested. A woman named Joanne Robinson, who was head of the English department at Alabama State, and the newly elected president of the Women's Political Caucus. And she said, have the women meet me. She was in Piggly Wiggly. She bought her dinner, went home and cooked it. She had two sons. She fed her sons and her husband, bathed the boys, put them to bed, said goodnight to her husband. People have said, well, why didn't the men go out? Why did they let the women go out? Well, it's Thursday night in Alabama. And if a bunch of black guys are hanging around Alabama State, a bunch of good old boys are rolled up, ugly things are happening. So I think sometimes people pick on the men, and you get tired of people picking on black men, because black men are good people. They have struggled to overcome a whole lot. I'm boycotting, by the way, I'm boycotting Precious, because I'm tired of every time you turn around and some black man humping his daughter, and she can't read. I mean, come on, don't we have another story someplace? So no, thank you. It's crazy. And you know, if all you saw, if all you ever saw was The Color Purple, Monster Ball, and Precious, you would say, no wonder Negroes are crazy. I mean, if I saw that, I'd say something wrong with them too. What the hell is that? You know, you just can't keep doing things like that. But Joanne wanted to have a boycott. She said, let's have a one-day boycott. Let's support Mrs. Parks. So what they did was they rolled off, they made 30,000 flyers or something like that. I know that you've heard that the boycott started because the preachers announced in Sunday church that there should be a boycott. But you have to remember, one, not everybody goes to church, and two, a lot of people that go to church have cars. A lot of other people, you have to reach the people who are going to be on the bus, and that's going to be the juke joints, and that's who the women reached. And obviously the people were tired, the people's hearts were heavy. So when the buses rolled on Monday at 6:30, there's nobody on the bus. 8 o'clock, there was nobody on the bus. Mrs. Parks was arraigned about 10 o'clock that morning. She was, of course, found guilty. Nobody's on the bus. People stayed off the bus all day. But you know what I love about Negroes? And no, aside from that, we're nice. We are. I just really love the disingenuous way. You know, as the boycott is going to go on, you know, the sheriff, because we always have these crazy sheriffs, is complaining that, you know, white women should not go pick up their maids. If they would do that, we could break the bus boycott, you know. And so the white women were asking their maids, you know, like, you know, Maybelle, are you boycotting the bus? No, ma'am. I'm staying off them till the struggle's over. I just always love the way that they just, you know, of course they supported the bus boycott. Are you crazy? So on Monday, we have a mass meeting at Ralph Abernathy's church. And it's going to be Monday that we're going to meet the man that we are now celebrating. It's going to be Monday that he is going to come and speak to us. And he's going to ask the question. Martin Luther King was 26 years old. He's a baby. I'm 66 years old. Some of you are younger than that, some of you are older, but 26, you haven't even begun. The minute he walked up to that podium, he knew that a clock was ticking. He knew that he was not going to die of old age. He was not going to die in the bed. He was not going to play with his grandchildren. He was not going to pet his dog. He knew that his life was going to be just cut short and probably cut horribly short. But what we like about King is that he had the courage to do it. Courage is a very important aspect. You don't win all of the battles, and I wish somebody would tell that to Barack Obama. You don't win all of the battles, but you have to have the courage. No, you have to have the courage to fight it. And Barack has compromised way too much, and he has no, I mean, who cares what he says anymore? Because you know that if it doesn't work, all he has is ambition, and what we are needing is courage. We need somebody to stand up for the people. We need somebody to stand up against war. We need somebody to stand up, to have the courage to say, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm going to deal with. Martin knew that what he was doing was going to change everything. But he asked the question that needed to be asked, and he asked the question that we still ask. Shall we continue? He asked, continue, and you can see it. Shall we continue? Because we already had something going. Shall we continue? And you and I, 40 years later, have still got to ask that question. Shall we continue? Shall we try to stop war? Shall we try to help the people that are in need? Shall we, as you did this Martin Luther King Day, shall we do something for the old people? Shall we help clear the brush? Shall we help make sure people have a warm winter? Shall we continue to be our better selves? I wrote a poem from Martin that I'd like to share, and I wrote it because, well, I've written a lot about Martin, but one of the things that you do when you're a writer is you keep turning it and turning and turning because you keep learning more. And on his 40th anniversary, what we had was Martin at 26 and me where I am. And I thought, you know, people don't connect the dots on that. When Martin Luther King met America, or rather, I should say when America met Martin, we were just coming out of World War II. We were economically strong, and it's fair to say we were smug. And so television was coming up and everybody was excited about that chicken in every pot and that kind of thing, you know. And I like television. I'm a big fan of television. But, you know, we have those dumb shows. We still have dumb shows, though, to tell you the truth. I look sometimes, it's like, whoa, is that what the hell is going on with Lost? I quit looking. And I did. You know, it's just like, whoa, what is that? That's crazy. The plane crash, y'all died. There were no survivors. This is somebody drunk. But you know, when we met Martin, America had that idea that this is the ideal life. So we had shows like Father Knows Best. And I always like Father Knows Best because, you know, that's that three children, Kitten and Bud and Princess, right? And of course, what I love, Kitten and Bud died of drug overdoses, as you know. But Princess, God bless her, moved down to Mayberry and became Andy Griffin's girlfriend. But if you follow your TV issue, but I was always fond of Margaret. Because Margaret was just a very cool mother, you know. Jim, and they never did say, you know, Jim Anderson was a insurance guy. He sold insurance. So I'm sure if we looked into his history, he's probably insuring the Klan, and they wanted to, like, not deal with that. Because he's in Springfield, Illinois. I mean, there's no liberal bastion there, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure he did. And Margaret got sick of him. We know he drank too much. And Margaret not only left him, but she left the planet, moved up to Vulcan, married Ambassador Spock, and birthed the brightest, and don't you just love that? It's like, yeah, Margaret, good for you. I know people always say, you know, families should stay together, but divorce can be a good idea if you're unhappy. It really can. You had shows, and I'm not violent, you don't know that, you have to take my word for it. I don't hit anything, or I really don't. But, you know, you have shows like Leave It to Beaver, and I swear, if Beaver was my kid, I would have smacked him. Don't you just hate children like that? I do, that little cliche crap, and they think it's clever. Look at that stuff, makes you ill. But the show that fascinated me the most was Donna Reed. And I'm sure it's just because I'm a black woman, or I was a girl at that time, but you know, Donna Reed's show would come on, and she was at home all day. Carl, as you know, her husband, was a dentist, and he was home sometimes he wasn't. But she would have on high heels, which just perplexed me. Because everybody that I know, when you come home, you kick your shoes off. I lived with my grandmother. Grandmother would come in, the shoes are off before she's through the door practically. And of course she has garters, so she'd be rolling the stockings off, right? But there's Donna Reed. She has on high heels, she has on stockings, and then the thing that really got me was that little lace apron. And all cooks have aprons. I have an apron, you probably have an apron, my grandmother had an apron. And the aprons are clean, but then, you know, where you wipe your hands or you cut a vegetable so there's a little orange from carrots or something like that. But she had a lace apron. It was like, whoa, nobody I know cooked like that. And I even know enough white people to know that was unusual, you know what I'm saying? That's the truth. And so I was always trying to figure out, you know, what's up with Donna Reed, because I knew there was a subtext going on, even at that age. And I used to go through, and I feel so sorry for kids now, because I used to go through encyclopedias. Now you don't have it, you have Google. And Google is what? Family Feud on steroids. Because that's the truth. All you're going to get is an answer to your question. But the advantage of encyclopedias is that you can keep flipping and flipping and flipping. And so I'm looking through it one day, and I'm doing France in World War II, and there it is. When you look at it, you look at the French wars, right? They have high heels, they have stockings, and they have little lace aprons. I was like, oh my God, Donna Reed is a French war. It was incredible. I didn't want to tell my grandmother because I wanted to ask about it, but I knew if grandmother knew that, she wouldn't let me watch the show. So I was trying to figure it out all on my own. I do know, or do feel, if Martin were here today and had the opportunity to give that same wonderful speech, he would have wrapped it. You know, we call it the I Have a Dream speech, but it really wasn't. It really is the we are here to cash a check speech. So I could just see him, you know, at the Lincoln Memorial. We are here to cash a check. It's really cool. Yeah, it needs to be, definitely needs to be, you know, brought up to date. I'm sure if Martin were with us today, he would have braids. I know somebody said, no, Nikki, he would have dreads. But he wouldn't, because, you know, Martin was anal retentive. And he was. Dreads do what they want to do. You know, you let it and they go all over the place. But braids behave. You braid it down and they do what you're supposed to do. I'm sure he would have braids. I doubt that we could get Martin, to be honest, to go blonde, though he would be fabulous as a blonde. Maybe it's cute, you know, just maybe tips. You know, just because he was always up to date. And I'm really sure that he would have a tattoo, because everybody has a tattoo. And of course I have a tattoo. You can't see it, but mine says Thug Life. And Daddy King would have a fit, so I'm sure his would say Freedom Now or Vote, you know, something responsible there. It'll work. And we know, of course, that the first person arrested for civil disobedience in the United States is going to be Henry David Thoreau. And Thoreau had a good friend named Ralph Waldo Emerson. But Emerson was a tight ass. There's no other way to describe it. Well, you've read it. And when they do the, 800,000 people that you'd like to have dinner with, Emerson doesn't make the cut. He was just, everybody loved to have a theater with Thoreau or something, but not Emerson. So Emerson went to see Thoreau. Thoreau was in jail because of Waldo. And, I was literally like, David, he called him David. David, what are you doing in jail? And Thoreau is going to have none of it. He said, Ralph, what are you doing out? There's an injustice. And we know that when Martin and the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, moved out of Montgomery and into Birmingham, the religious fathers, the 7 religious fathers of Birmingham, took out an ad in the Advertiser and said to Martin Luther King Jr., what are you doing here in Birmingham? Why are you troubling these waters? And Martin is going to respond the same way Thoreau did. He's going to write a letter from Birmingham City Jail. Why are you not here with us? Where is your Christian witness? I wrote a poem in the spirit of Martin. This is a sacred poem. Blood has been shed to consecrate it. Wash your hands, remove your shoes, bow your head. I have a dream. That was a magical time. Hi-ho, silver away. Oh, Zisco, oh, Pancho. Here I come to save the day. I want the world to see what they did to my son. No, no, no. I'm not going to move. If we are wrong, then the Constitution of the United States is wrong. Montgomery, Birmingham, Selma, 4 little girls. Constant fear, constant threat, constant harassment. SCLC, Ralph and Martin, Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver. Ed Sullivan, how long? Not long. But what, Mr. Thoreau said to Mr. Emerson, are you doing out? This is a letter from Birmingham City Jail. This is a eulogy for Albany. This is a water hose for Anniston. This is a thank you to Diane Nash. This is a flag for James Farmer. This is a how can I make it without you to Ella Baker. This is for the red clay of Georgia that yielded black men of courage, black men of vision, black men of hopes, bent over cotton or sweet potatoes or pool tables and baseball diamonds, playing for a chance to live free and breathe easy and have enough money to take care of the folks they love. This is why we can't wait. That swirling Mississippi wind, the Alabama pine, that Tennessee dust defiling the clothes the women washed, those hot winds the lemonade couldn't cool, that let the women know we too must overcome. This is for Fannie Lou Hamer, Joanne Robinson, Septima Clark, Daisy Bates, all the women who said, baby, 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 I know you didn't mean to lose your job. I know you didn't mean to gamble the rent money. I know you didn't mean to hit me. I know the Lord is going to make a way. I know I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. How much pressure does the earth exert on carbon to make a diamond? How long does the soil push against the flesh, molding the moan that becomes a cry that bursts forth, crystalline, unbreakable, priceless, incomparable Martin, I made my vow to the Lord that I never return back. How much pressure do the sins of the world press against the heart of a man who becomes the voice of his people? He should have had a tattoo, Freedom Now or something like that. Should have braided his hair, carried his pool cue in a mahogany case, wafted that wonderful laugh over a plate of skillet fried chicken, drop biscuits, dandelion greens on the side. This is a sacred poem. Open your arms, turn your palms up, feel the spirit of greatness, and be redeemed. Close on one of my favorite poems. It's called Eco Tripping. Yeah. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. And there. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth veins created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I'm a gazelle. So swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son, Hannibal, an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows, ever on. My son Noah built Newark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself who was Jesus. Men intoned my loving name. All praises, all praises. I am the one who would save. I sold diamonds in my backyard. My bowels deliver uranium. The fibers from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
Thank you, dear friends, for joining us tonight. My name is Augusto Peña, and I'm honored to begin this brief closing with just a few public thank yous. Once again, to all of our wonderful partners for their generosity and support. Thank you to the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Compliance, the Office of Arts and Cultural Programs, Harding Auditorium staff. If you enjoyed this program, it's because it's of them that made it look so good. The Center for Appalachian Studies, the Children's Playhouse of Boone, Appalachian Seniors Program, the Women's Studies Program, Interdisciplinary Studies, the Scholars Bookshop at the University Bookstore, by the way, who will remain in the lobby for anyone who would like to purchase any more of Professor Giovanni's books, the Cratis D. Williams Graduate School, and the ASU Sociology Club. On behalf of the ASU Sociology Club, thank you for all of your donations of non-perishable food items, which will be distributed among the food banks for the 5 counties served by the Appalachian Seniors Program, these being Ashe, Allegheny, Avery, Watauga, and Wilkes. Finally, I'd like to lift up and celebrate something some of you may have heard about, the grand opening on this coming Monday of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum in Greensboro. The center's website reads, 50 years ago, the F.W. Woolworth Building in Greensboro, North Carolina, stood as a reminder of the segregated life in the South. Today, the building stands as a monument to the power of human courage and its ability to bring about social change. The International Civil Rights Center and Museum is more than just a building designed to house historical exhibits and artifacts. It is a place to witness, to experience, and to discuss how to affect social change in our nation and around the world. Visit the center and join the ongoing conversation. Become part of the change. Thank you and good night.